It all began with silence. A silence so heavy, it felt like the walls of the office were closing in. The papers on the desk still sat neatly stacked. Her coffee was still warm. But she was gone. The HR manager said she stepped out. Coworkers whispered that maybe she just needed a break. But those who knew her best, they knew something wasn't right. Because before her sudden disappearance from the office that day, she had left behind one final email. An email that would shake the entire company to its core. Now, let's rewind. Picture a typical morning in a bustling corporate office in downtown Atlanta. Phones ringing. Printers humming. People in press suits tapping away on keyboards. Everything seemed normal, just another day in America's so-called land of equal opportunity. But beneath that surface of polite smiles and corporate lingo, there was a storm brewing. A storm centered around one woman. Her name was Danielle King. Danielle was 32 years old. A hardworking black woman who never let her struggles define her. Raised by a single mother in a small Georgia town, she grew up hearing one mantra every single day. Baby, they might doubt you, they might try to break you, but never let them steal your dignity. And dignity was something Danielle carried like armor. She wasn't the loudest in the office. She wasn't the one telling jokes at happy hour. But she was the one staying late, finishing projects, making sure the team succeeded. Her coworkers described her as kind, focused, and maybe too humble. But humility can sometimes make you invisible. And in this office, invisibility made her a target. His name? Charles Whitman. The boss. The kind of man who walked into a room and expected silence. He was in his mid-50s, with a silver-streaked head of hair, custom suits, and a voice that dripped with condescension. To outsiders, he looked like a polished executive. To his employees, he was a shadow that loomed over every paycheck. And for some reason, Danielle caught his eye. At first, it was subtle. Compliments that felt a little too personal. A hand resting too long on her shoulder during meetings. Jokes whispered in her ear that no one else could hear. Danielle brushed it off, because in corporate America, women like her were taught to pick your battles. But then, the compliments turned into commands. The jokes turned into threats. And soon, Danielle realized she wasn't just an employee. She was being hunted. She confided in a friend at work. The friend told her, "Be careful. HR doesn't protect us, they protect him." And Danielle knew it was true. Because every time she tried to document his behavior, the company swept it under the rug. Her emails went unanswered. Her meetings with HR ended with forced smiles and empty promises. Meanwhile, Charles grew bolder. He started calling her into late-night strategy sessions, locking the door behind him. She would leave the office with her hands shaking, tears staining her notebook pages. But still, every morning she showed up. Because rent was due. Bills had to be paid. And dignity doesn't pay the electric bill. But here's where the story takes a turn. Charles wasn't just her boss. Danielle discovered, through whispered conversations and leaked emails, that Charles had deep ties with members of the board. The very people she thought might protect her were the same people protecting him. He wasn't just powerful. He was untouchable. Or so he thought. Because what Charles didn't know was that Danielle had been keeping receipts. Every message. Every late-night voicemail. Every email dripping with inappropriate language. She saved them all. And when the time was right, she dropped her evidence like a bombshell. One morning, as the office buzzed with gossip, a headline broke out in the Atlanta Journal. Corporate executive accused of harassment by former employee. The story exploded. News vans lined up outside the glass office building. Employees whispered in hallways, afraid to pick a side. But Danielle? She was no longer hiding. She filed a lawsuit, naming not just Charles, but the entire company. Suddenly, the man who once strutted through the office with arrogance, now walked with his head down. Reporters chased him into parking garages. His reputation, crumbling. And the woman he thought was invisible? She was now the face of resilience. The courtroom was packed. Danielle sat at the plaintiff's table, her hands trembling, but her eyes locked forward. Across the aisle, Charles sat with his team of lawyers. His smug expression gone. The trial was brutal. Witnesses testified. Emails were read aloud, word by word, echoing through the courtroom like poison. Danielle's voice cracked when she spoke of the nights she cried herself to sleep, wondering if she would ever be believed. But then came the moment. Her lawyer pulled out a recording. A voicemail Charles had left late one night, his voice slurred with alcohol. "You belong to me, Danielle. Don't forget who signs your checks." The jury gasped. Reporters scribbled furiously. And Charles? His face drained of color. The power he once wielded evaporated in an instant. The verdict came down weeks later. Danielle won her case. Charles was forced to resign. The company paid millions in damages. But here's the part that leaves a bitter taste. Charles walked away without prison time. No handcuffs. No mugshot. Just a tarnished reputation, and a golden parachute of retirement money. And Danielle? She gained her freedom. She gained her dignity. But she also gained something she never asked for, trauma that would last a lifetime. So the question remains, did justice really win? Or was this just another reminder that in America, the powerful fall softly, while the powerless carry scars? Danielle's story is a lesson. A lesson that silence protects the oppressor, but truth, even when whispered, can shake empires. She stood tall, even when they tried to bury her in shame. And her fight reminds us all. You can strip someone of a paycheck. You can strip them of a title. But you can never strip them of their dignity, unless they give it away. And Danielle? She refused. This is not just her story, it's a warning. Because somewhere, right now, another woman is facing the same battle. And the question is, will she stay silent, or will she rise? The courtroom was silent that day when the verdict came down. Danielle won. The headlines screamed, "Black woman takes down corporate giant." But behind those headlines lay a darker truth. Because victory in court didn't erase the scars. And for Danielle King, her story wasn't over. In fact, it was just beginning. After the trial, Danielle thought life would return to normal. But what does normal look like when your name is splashed across every news outlet in the city? She couldn't walk into a grocery store without whispers. Coworkers she thought were friends vanished. Job offers she applied for disappeared the moment they Googled her name. It was as if the world had stamped her with one word: troublemaker. And yet, deep down, she knew she did the right thing. At night, Danielle sat alone in her small apartment. Stacks of legal papers still piled on her kitchen table. The victory check from the lawsuit sat untouched in her account. Money couldn't heal what she lost. She lost trust. She lost her career path. She lost a piece of simply being unseen. But she had one thing left: dignity. And that dignity was about to fuel her next move. Because just when Danielle thought Charles Whitman had disappeared from the spotlight, a new article surfaced. Not only had he walked away with millions in severance, he was quietly negotiating a role at another corporation, another office, another team of employees, another set of women who could fall into his trap. Danielle froze when she read the article. Was this how it worked? A man exposed for harassment simply relocates, rebrands, and resumes his power? Her stomach churned. Her heart raced. She realized she wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for all the women who would come after her. So Danielle did something bold. She spoke out. She gave interviews. She stood on stages and told her story, raw, unfiltered, and unapologetic. She called out the corporations that protected predators. She named the systems that silenced victims. And slowly, something began to change. Her voice, once ignored, became a weapon. Her silence, once forced, became a movement. She wasn't just Danielle King, the woman who sued her boss. She became Danielle King, the woman who exposed the system. But then came the unexpected. Charles himself reached out. A message through her lawyer. He wanted to meet. Danielle hesitated. Every instinct told her to ignore him. But deep down, she needed closure. So in a small cafe, months after the trial, they sat face to face. His once proud eyes looked tired. His voice, once dripping with arrogance, now cracked with desperation. He told her she had ruined him. That his family disowned him. That his name was destroyed. And for the first time, Danielle didn't feel fear. She didn't feel pity. She felt power. She leaned forward and said the words that echoed like thunder. "You ruined yourself. All I did was tell the truth. That meeting closed one chapter. But another question lingered. How many other Charles Whitmans were out there, protected by wealth, shielded by power? Danielle's story was no longer just hers. It became a mirror, reflecting a painful reality far bigger than one office, one lawsuit, or one boss. So while Charles faded into silence, Danielle rose into a voice that would not be silenced. But the fight was far from over. Danielle's journey is a reminder. Sometimes, justice doesn't look like a handcuff. Sometimes, it looks like a voice refusing to break. Her courage proves this. You can try to bury the truth, but the truth always finds air. And to anyone listening right now, don't let fear silence you. Don't let power intimidate you. Because the moment you speak, you set others free. If you've been moved by Danielle's story, make sure to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more powerful stories they don't want told. Because here, we don't just tell stories, we uncover truth. And trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next.